Hi students, this video is for the study of anatomy of the pectoral region. This is Dr. Yusuf. So these are the specific objectives which we will cover. Describe the muscles of the pectoral region and give their actions and nerve supply. Then also we'll describe the clavipectoral fascia and the structures which will be piercing through it. So this is the pectoral region which we will study today. So this is the pectoral region. So when we study the pectoral region, we should know this is the area which is exterior to the anterior thoracic wall, as you saw in the picture. So this is the area which is exterior to the thoracic wall. What is thoracic wall? It is the bony structure made up of the ribs as well as the sternum in the front and vertebrae behind. So the thoracic wall made up of the bones, the ribs, the cartilage, the costal cartilages, the sternum as well as the vertebra behind, as well as the intercostal muscles and the fascia which are covering it, that form the thoracic wall. So this is exterior to this pectoral region is exterior to the thoracic wall. So this thoracic wall or the pectoral region is divided into two parts. One is the superficial compartment and the deep compartment. The superficial compartment is composed of the skin superficial fascia, within which is the mammary gland. As you know, the mammary gland or the breast, which is present both in case of the male and the female, is present within the superficial fascia. Okay. Then deep to that will be the deep compartment, which will contain the muscles as well as the structures which are associated with it. Within the superficial fascia will be the fibrofatty area, as well as within which will be the mammary gland present within it. It encloses the mammary gland within this fibrofatty region. The deep fascia has a special name. Everywhere where the deep fascia enters, it will have a special name. In the pectoral region, it has a specific name called the pectoral fascia because it will be covering the pectoralis major and minor muscles. So this fascia is called as the pectoral fascia. This is nothing but the deep fascia. It covers the pectoralis major and it is attached to the clavicle and the sternum medially. If you see here, so here it has not been shown. Here is the pectoralis major muscle. This is the mammary gland. Okay, so this is mammary gland is present as we saw. It is within the superficial fascia, deep to that, and superficial to this pectoral. This is the pectoralis major muscle on either side. So superficial to that, there will be a fascia covering the pectoralis major muscle. Okay, so it is between the mammary gland and the pectoralis major muscle. So that will be the fascia covering the pectoralis major muscle. That is called as the pectoral fascia. So it is attached medially to the clavicle and the sternum. Here is the sternum, this is the manubrium sternum, this is the body of the sternum, and this is the third process, and this is the clavicle. So it is attached to the clavicle as well as the sternum medially. So as you saw, attached to the clavicle and the sternum medially and continuous laterally as the axillary fascia in the floor of the axilla, and then encloses the latissimus dorsi posteriorly. So as we saw, this will cover the pectoralis major muscle and it will go laterally into this region. This is called as the axillary area, where it forms the axillary fascia and then goes behind to cover the latissimus dorsi muscle. Okay, so this is about the deep fascia which is present in the pectoral region. Now coming to the muscles of the pectoral region. So there are four specific muscles which are present in this region. They are the pectoralis major muscle, minor muscle, subclavius, as well as the serratus anterior. These are the four muscles which are present here. One is the pectoralis major muscle, which you are seeing here. Then deep to that, there will be a smaller muscle called as the pectoralis minor, as well as a muscle below the clavicle that is called as the subclavius. And then behind, there will be serratus anterior muscle. If you see a part of it, can be it is not shown here. Okay, let's see later the picture showing the serratus anterior. So these are the four muscles which will present in this region. Pectoral region consists of the pectoralis major, minor, subclavius, as well as the serratus anterior. These are the four muscles present in this region. So here what you are seeing is the pectoralis, the big bulky muscle, which is called as the pectoralis major muscle. So if we see, this is, as I said, it is bulky muscle. This is the largest and the most superficial of all the pectoral muscles. Okay, it lies under the breast, as we saw. It is deep to the breast. So here you can see this is the mammary gland or the breast, and this muscle is deep to that and is separated from it only by a deep fascia, which is called as the pectoral fascia. So the mammary gland and the pectoralis major muscle are separated by a deep fascia, which is covering the pectoralis major muscle, which we saw called as the pectoral fascia, as well as a loose connective tissue of the retromemory space. There will be a small space filled with loose connective tissue over which this is called as the retromemory space, and it is filled with the connective tissue over which the mammary gland will easily moves over the pectoralis major muscle. So between the pectoralis major muscle and the mammary gland, there is a space called as the retromemory space, which is filled with the loose connective tissue over which the mammary gland can easily slide. So the pectoralis major muscle, as we saw, this whole thing is the pectoralis major muscle. It is a fan-shaped muscle. Okay, it is thick, bulky, triangular. As you saw, it looks like a triangle, almost like a triangle. So it is triangular muscle with a broad origin and a narrow insertion. As we can see, this whole thing is the origin of this muscle. So it has a very big origin, and it is inserted to a particular region in the humerus. We'll see that. So to a narrow area, so it has a narrow insertion. So these kind of muscles which have a large origin and a small insertion, this is especially helpful in case of the, if we want to do as you can say a heavy work can be done by this kind of insertion. A big origin, bulky origin, and a small insertion will help in the greater movements and powerful movements. So it helps in the movement of the upper limb, as we'll see later. So that's why this broad origin and a narrow insertion will help in actually powerful movements. Its upper broad border is separated from the deltoid by a deltopectoral, or also called as the infraclavicular triangle, as well as groove. If you see here, there is a small area between this the deltoid muscle and this is the pectoralis major muscle. These two are separated by a small triangular area as well as the groove called as the deltopectoral groove or the infraclavicular triangle. Okay. So this pectoralis major muscle will have two heads, as we will see. One is called as the clavicular head and the sternal head. So this is the pectoralis major muscle, as again you can see. So it has a big origin. So a part of it will take origin from the clavicle and a part of it will take origin from the sternum. Actually, the sternal part is larger compared to the clavicular part. So it has two heads of origin. One is the clavicular head taking origin from the clavicle, and the second part will be taking origin from the sternal head. So it has two heads, the clavicular head and the sternal head. Clavicular head, it will take origin from the clavicle, from the medial half of the anterior face of the clavicle. As you can see here, this is the whole thing. This whole thing is the clavicle here. So this is the lateral part and this is the medial part. So this pectoralis major will be taking origin from the medial half, okay, of the anterior surface of the clavicle. Then seeing if we go to the sternal head, this is the sternum. So this becomes the sternal head. So it will take origin from the lateral part of the anterior surface of the manubrum, as you can see here. So this is the lateral part of the sternum, anterior surface, okay, and the body of the sternum. So both from this is the manubrum sterni, this is the body of the sternum. So this is the manubrum sterni. There are three parts of the sternum: manubrum sterni, body of the sternum, as well as this xiphoid process. So it will take origin from both the manubrum as well as the body of the sternum from the lateral part. Okay. Up to the sixth costal cartilages. What are costal cartilage? These are costal cartilage. The ribs, they don't directly are connected to the sternum, but they're connected with the sternum through a cartilage, hyaline cartilage, which is called the costal cartilage. Costa means rib. So the cartilage which is attached to the this costa or the ribs, so it is called as costal cartilages. So from each rib, the first rib will have the first costal cartilage, second rib will have the second costal cartilage. So this will be the deep to that will be the costal cartilages. So it will take origin from the first to the sixth costal, up to the sixth costal cartilage at that level on the sternum, as well as from the first to second costal cartilage. So costal cartilages are lateral to the sternum. So it will take origin not only from the sternum, but also from the costal cartilages, as well as the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle of the abdomen. So there is a muscle in the anti-abdominal wall, so which is called as the external oblique muscle, that all becomes aponeurotic here. What is aponeurosis? Aponeurosis is nothing but the thinning of the muscle. So when the muscle is attached to a bone by a thick fibrous structure that is called as tendon, when it becomes flattened and thinned out, then it is called as aponeurosis. So the external oblique muscle becomes thinned out here, so that is called as aponeurosis, from where the pectoralis major muscle also take origin. Not only it is taking origin from the clavicle, from the sternum, the manubrium sternae, as well as the body of the sternum, the costal cartilages, as well as even the external oblique muscle. So this is the whole origin. So it has a very big origin. Now we'll see the insertion of this muscle. This muscle will converge. So as you can see here, this whole muscle, so even though it has a big origin, the whole muscle is converging to a particular point. So it converges to form a flat bilaminar tendon. If you see here, this muscle, which is coming from the clavicular part, clavicular head, become flattened out, and it gets anterior, and the part which is from the sternum, it is getting twisted, turned, and it becomes the posterior leg. Okay, so it converges to form a flat bilaminar tendon. So it becomes a two laminar, the anterior as well as posterior laminar. So there are two laminae which will be formed within this muscle. So the posterior laminae is formed by the muscle taking origin from the sternum. So it becomes bilaminar tendon, about 5 centimeters long, and it is inserted on the lateral lip of the bicipital groove, which is also called as the intertubercular sulcus. If we see the next picture, this is the, again you can see here, pectoralis major. So if you can see here, this is the anterior laminae. This muscle, this part will go behind and get uh, uh, curved into a U-shaped tendon, which becomes posterior part. So this becomes bilaminar tendon, and it will get inserted to something called as the bicipital groove. So this is called as the bicipital groove, or it is also called as the intertubercular sulcus, because there are two tubercle. This is the greater tubercle, this is the lesser tubercle. In between is the intertubercular sulcus. So from the greater tubercle, there is a part extending here. This becomes the lateral lip. A part of the lesser tubercle will extend down as the medial lip. So this muscle, the pectoralis major muscle, will get inserted to the lateral lip. So it will get inserted here, lateral lip of the bicipital groove. As you can see here, the part which is coming down from the extending from the greater tubercle. So that becomes the lateral lip, and this muscle get inserted to the lateral lip of the bicipital groove. So it converges to form a flat bilaminar tendon about 5 centimeters long, and it is inserted on the lateral lip of the bicipital groove, which is also called as the intertubercular sulcus. The two lamina are continuous with each other inferiorly in a U-shaped manner. So this becomes the anterior layer, the muscle coming from here, this becomes the posterior layer, and it becomes like a U-shaped tendon which get inserted to the bicipital groove. Okay. So it forms the anterior wall of the axilla. So if you see here, this is the axilla. This region is called as the axilla. So this is the pectoralis major. This is the bulky muscle because it is the most bulkiest muscle. So this muscle forms the major part of the anterior wall. This is the anterior wall of the axilla. This is the posterior wall. This is the lateral. This is the medial wall. So this region, this depression, this is called as the axilla. So this pectoralis major will form the anterior wall of the axilla with its rounded and twisted lower border forming the anterior fold of the axilla, as you can see here. So this is the bulky rounded twisted fold which form the anterior wall of the axilla. So here you can see here, this is the muscle. So here this muscle has been cut and you can see the same. So here you can see the bulky as well as the twisting of the and rounded anterior fold of the axilla. The anterior lamina is short and thick and consists of the superficial, intermediate, and deep fibers. The clavicular head forms the superficial fibers. As I said, the major part of the anterior lamina is formed by the superficial layers coming from the clavicle. That from the manubrum form the intermediate fibers, and from the sternal margin form the deep fibers. So this is how the fibers are arranged within this bicipital groove when they are attached. The posterior lamina is thin and long, and it is formed by the rest of the sternocostal fibers and the fibers from the aponeurosis of the external oblique. So here they are mentioning how the posterior fibers are formed, especially from the lower part of the sternum as well as the fibers coming from the part which is taking origin from the external oblique muscle. Okay, so this is how the muscle has been inserted to this bone on the lateral lip of the bicipital groove. So this kind of insertion with a broad origin and a small insertion will help in powerful movements of the upper limb. So here again you can see this is the pectoralis major muscle. So this is the bulky muscle which form the anterior wall of the axilla. This is the axilla here. Okay, here this is the deltoid muscle separated by the deltopectoral groove. So here also you can see again the muscle, and here is the deltoid. When they are separated, then deep inside you can see some structures. We'll talk about that later. Coming to the nerve supply. So the nerve supply of this muscle is by the two important nerves called as the medial and lateral pectoral nerve. If you go back to this picture, when you separate these two muscles, the deltoid and the pectoralis major muscle, in this space you can see two important nerves. One is the lateral pectoral nerve, and then we can also see this is the medial pectoral nerve. So here it is mentioned. This is the medial pectoral nerve. This is the lateral pectoral nerve. Okay, so these are the two nerves which will supply the pectoralis major muscle. So it is supplied by two important nerves, the lateral and the medial pectoral nerve. What are the actions which will be done by this muscle when this muscle contracts? So acting as a whole, the muscle causes adduction and medial rotation of the shoulder. You might be knowing what is adduction and medial rotation. I will show you. Okay. Then the clavicular head helps in the flexion of the arm as in pushing. Let me show you the pictures. Okay. So this is called as flexion. Okay. So this is the extension, this is the flexion. So when you move the limb, not vertically straight, but slightly crossed toward the chest wall. So when you lift it upwards, so this becomes flexion. So if you send it backwards, then it becomes extension. So this is the movement called as flexion and extension. So this muscle, pectoralis major muscle, will help in the one is the flexion of the arm, then also the adduction. What is adduction? Okay, so adduction, if you see here, the moving the limb away from the body, that is called as abduction. When it is moved back to its normal wall and in contact with the chest wall, then it is called as adduction. This is the adduction movement. So whenever the pectoralis major muscle help contract, it helps in adduction as well as flexion. Then also the medial rotation of the shoulder. What is the medial rotation? If you see here, so when you flex at the elbow and then move your palm outwards, then it is called as lateral rotation. If you turn it inwards, then it is called as medial rotation. So inward movement is called as medial rotation, lateral movement is called as lateral rotation. So this movement, medial rotation and adduction are done by the adduction and medial rotation are done by the whole muscle when it contracts. The clavicular head helps in the flexion of the arm, which you saw. This is the flexion, which is done by especially from the fibers coming from the clavicular head. The sternocostal head is used in the extension of the flexed arm to bring it to the side and as in case of the climbing. So sternocostal head, what helps when it is in flexion position and bringing it back to the normal position, not extension, but normal position back into the normal position. That is done by the sternocostal head. Sternocostal head helps in the extension of the flexed arm to bring it back to the side. Okay, as in case of climbing. Okay, so these are the some of the movements done by the pectoralis major muscle. One is the medial rotation, then the adduction, then flexion, and bringing back to the normal position. Okay, so these are some of the functions done by the pectoralis major muscle. So now if you want to examine the muscle as well as the intactness of the nerve supplying this muscle, so just do this kind of maneuver and you can easily examine. If you see this patient is trying to lift with his wrist, so when he tries to lift a heavy weight from the wrist, so if you see here, this pectoralis major muscle is contracting, and you can see the prominence of this pectoralis. This is the deltoid muscle, this is the pectoralis major muscle. So you can see clearly see that it is intact. But if it is not intact, then it leads to flaccidness like this here. But here it is normal because he is trying to push it and it is flaccid here. Okay. So this is how we can examine the patient to check whether the pectoralis major muscle is in working condition and it is the nerve supply is intact. So here again you can see this is the pectoralis major muscle. Now if you cut this pectoralis major muscle, then deep inside you can see this muscle. This is called as the pectoralis minor muscle. This is the pectoralis muscle, smaller muscle compared to the pectoralis major. Here if you can see here, again the insertion has been cut. Okay, then you can see deep inside you can see the pectoralis minor muscle. So whenever we cut the pectoralis major muscle, then deep inside you can see two important muscles, which are smaller muscles, the pectoralis minor muscle as well as the subclavius muscles. These two muscles lie under the pectoralis major muscle. As you can see here in this picture you saw, so under the pectoralis major is the pectoralis minor muscle, and here below the clavicle, this is the clavicle, just below the clavicle there is the subclavius. These are very small muscles compared to the pectoralis major muscle. So coming to the pectoralis minor muscle, the origin is from the anterior surface of the third, fourth, and fifth ribs near the costochondral junction. If you can see here, this is the costochondral junction. As I said, the rib will come anteriorly, but it is not in direct contact with the sternum, but through the costal cartilage. These are the costal cartilages. So the pectoralis major muscle will take origin from the upper six costal cartilages. But here, the pectoralis minor muscle will take origin from the third, fourth, and fifth ribs just lateral to the costochondral junction. So here this is the costochondral junction. Costa means rib, chondra means cartilage. So costochondral junction. Okay, so the near the junction is the from the third, fourth, and fifth rib will be the origin of the pectoralis minor muscle, as well as the deep fascia covering the external intercostal muscle. So not only the ribs, but also the deep fascia covering the external intercostal muscle. Intercostal muscles are the muscles which are between the ribs. These are the intercostal muscle. There are three layers of this muscle: external intercostal, internal intercostal, as well as the innermost. Okay, so there is a fascia covering, deep fascia covering even this intercostal muscle or the external intercostal muscle. So this muscle, this pectoralis minor muscle, not only takes origin from third, fourth, and fifth ribs lateral to the costochondral junction, but also from the deep fascia covering these external intercostal muscles. Then coming to the insertion, so insertion will be to the medial border and upper surface of the coracoid process. What is this coracoid? This is the process coming from the scapula. So there are two processes for the scapula. One is the acromion process as well as the coracoid process. So this this muscle is getting inserted to the coracoid process of the scapula. Okay, So if you can see here, the origin is here and the insertion is into the scapula coracoid process. Nerve supply is by the mainly by the medial pectoral nerve, and some even have some few branches from the lateral pectoral. Usually it will be the by the mainly by the medial pectoral nerve. So here you can see here, this is the pectoralis minor. This is the pectoralis major muscle cut, and you can see deep inside is the pectoralis minor muscle, and here you can see the nerve coming. This is the medial pectoral nerve, and here you can see the lateral pectoral nerve. Usually it is supplying only the pectoralis major muscle, but sometimes even gives some branches to the the pectoralis minor muscle. So here again you can see the two important nerves which are coming from the brachial. This is the brachial plexus here. Okay, and here you can see this is the axillary artery supplying the upper limb. So these are the, here you can see the lateral pectoral nerve as well as the medial pectoral nerve coming from the brachial plexus. Details about this nerves will be covered in the brachial plexus itself. Coming to the actions of this pectoralis minor muscle, so because it is attached to the scapula, it helps in the protraction of the scapula along with the serratus anterior. Main muscle for the protraction will be the serratus anterior. This also helps. What is protraction? This movement. If you move your shoulder backwards, this is called as retraction. The opposite movement, if you try to bring your shoulder forwards, this is called as protraction. So whenever the muscle contracts, pectoralis minor muscle, it pulls the scapula forwards and helps in the protraction. Then it also helps in depressing the tip of the shoulder because it is attached to the coracoid process. When it pulls, it also pulls the shoulder itself downwards. Okay, with the levator scapulae as well as the rhomboid muscles. This muscle also helps in the forced inspiration. Okay, it also helps in the forced inspiration. So this mainly doesn't help in normal respiration, but in case of forced inspiration, this helps in the movement of the chest wall by pulling the scapula forwards. So slightly there is a role. Okay, so the main function of this muscle will be the protraction of the scapula as well as the depression of the shoulder. Now coming to the third muscle, a very small muscle which is present below the clavicle, which is called as the subclavius. The name sub means, as you know, is below, clavius means clavicle. So it is below the clavicle, that's what is called as the subclavius muscle. Now you can see here, so this is the clavicle, just below the clavicle, this is the subclavius muscle. Okay, it's a small muscle under cover of the pectoralis major. We saw that both the pectoralis minor as well as subclavius are under the cover of the pectoralis major muscle, which, what is the function of this muscle, this subclavius? It helps in the stabilizing the sternoclavicular joint. This is the sternoclavicular joint between the sternum and the clavicle. This is the sternoclavicular joint. So this muscle, subclavius muscle, will get attached to the clavicle, and it pulls the clavicle downwards and keep the sternoclavicular joint in its position and stabilizes joint. If this muscle is not there, this joint will have more movements and it leads to destabilization of the joint. So this muscle keep the joint intact and it helps in the stabilization of this sternoclavicular joint by allowing lesser movements for the clavicle. The origin of this muscle is from the first rib. So the origin of this muscle is from the first rib, as you can see here, at the costochondral junction. As you can see here, the first rib, the first costochondral junction. At the junction of this costa and the cartilage, costochondral junction is the origin of this subclavius muscle, and get inserted to the where groove in the middle 1/3 of the clavicle inferior surface. So there is a groove just below the clavicle, as you can see in this picture. So this is the inferior surface. In the middle 1/3, there is a groove called as the subclavian groove. Subclavian, because the subclavius muscle is getting inserted. So this groove is called a subclavian groove. So it attached to the inferior surface, middle 1/3 on the subclavian groove. Okay, so this is the insertion and the origin of the muscle. Now coming to the nerve supply of the muscle, it is by the nerve to the subclavius, coming from the upper trunk of the brachial plexus, directly from the upper trunk of the brachial plexus. There is a nerve coming to the subclavius. This is called as the nerve to subclavius. What are the actions of this muscle? As we saw, it mainly helps in the stabilizing the sternoclavicular joint. Now, this is all about the three muscles, the pectoralis major muscle, minor muscle, as well as the subclavius muscle. Now we'll try to discuss what exactly there is a fascia called as clavipectoral fascia. So what is this fascia and what's the importance? Okay, so it's a strong and continuous sheet of deep fascia which stretches from the clavicle above to the pectoralis minor muscle below. If you see here, deep to the pectoralis major muscle, there is a fascia again that is called as the clavipectoral fascia. If you see here, this is the pectoralis major, this is the side view, cut view. Okay, cross-sectional view. If you see here in the front, you can see just in front of the pectoralis major muscle, there will be a fascia. This is anterior to that. That will be called as the pectoral fascia in front of the pectoralis major muscle. Then deep to that, there are two muscles. These are the pectoralis minor as well as this subclavius. There's the clavicle here, just below the clavicle with the subclavius. So these two muscles are also covered by a deep fascia called as the clavipectoral fascia. Clavipectoral fascia divides above and splits and cover the subclavius, and below also it splits to cover the pectoralis minor muscle. So it lies under the cover of the pectoralis major muscle, and it covers the two important muscles, the subclavius as well as the pectoralis minor muscle. Medially, it fuses with the anterior intercostal membrane of the upper two spaces. So if you see medially, this is the pectoralis major muscle has been removed. Now we can see this is the clavipectoral fascia, which is covering the pectoralis minor muscle as well as the subclavius. So medially it fuses with the anterior intercostal membrane of the upper two spaces. If you see here, it is coming medially and getting fused with the anti-intercostal membrane. Okay. Laterally, it is attached to the coracoid process. Laterally, it goes toward the shoulder, attached to the coracoid process, and blends with the coracoclavicular ligament. Above, the fascia splits to enclose the subclavius. As we saw, it goes above and splits into two layers, anterior and posterior layer, and covers the subclavius muscle, as we saw in the previous picture. Let me show it again, okay, later. And is attached to the two lips of the subclavian groove. We saw the subclavian groove where the subclavius muscle is attached. So in the front of the this muscle as well as in the back of the muscle, so the two split fascias will get attached. So it will attach to the two lips of the subclavian groove of the clavicle. A portion of the fascia along the lower border of the subclavius and extending from the coracoid process to the first costochondral junction is thickened to form the costocoracoid ligament. A part of the fascia will become the costocoracoid ligament. So here you can see here, this is the clavipectoral fascia splitting in the front as well as back of the muscle called as the subclavius. The anterior part will attach to the anterior lip. The posterior layer will attach to the posterior lip of the groove. Below, the fascia splits to enclose the pectoralis minor muscle. As you can see here, comes below as a single membrane, then it splits again into two layers in front as well as in the back of the pectoralis minor muscle. Okay, and encloses the pectoralis minor muscle, and then it reunites at the lower border of the muscle and extend downwards as the suspensory ligament of the axilla. As it goes down, and it is called this part is called the suspensory ligament of the axilla, which blends with the summit of the axillary fascia. This is the axillary fascia, which is nothing but the extension of the pectoral fascia, which was covering the pectoralis major muscle. It comes down and it goes as the axillary fascia. So the suspensory ligament will fuse with the axillary fascia and maintain the hollow of the armpit. As we saw, there is a hollow within the armpit because this fascia is, the axillary fascia is pulled by the suspensory ligament of the axilla. So here also you can see when we pull these two muscles, in between these two is the deltopectoral groove. Within that, what you are seeing, this fascia, nothing but the clavipectoral fascia, which is covering the pectoralis minor muscle as well as the subclavius above. Okay, so this is the deltoid here, and this is the pectoralis major muscle. In between, you can see this is the clavipectoral fascia. Now, there are structures which are piercing this clavipectoral fascia. As you can see, this is again the clavipectoral fascia. This is the pectoralis minor muscle, subclavius. This fascia is coming all the way, going the two muscles as well as going to the axilla. And in between, if you see here, there are structures which are piercing the clavipectoral fascia. As you can see, even in this picture, so these structures, all these structures are piercing the clavipectoral fascia. Which are those? One is the lateral pectoral nerve. Then if you see here in this picture, this is the lateral pectoral nerve. Then the second structure is the vein. There is one nerve, one artery, and one vein. So lateral pectoral nerve, one you saw. Then you saw the vein. This is the cephalic vein. This is the cephalic vein. Then, which is the vein of the upper limb. Then the thoracoacromial artery, there is an artery coming here. This is called as the thoracoacromial artery, which will give four branches, which are called as APCD, not AB, APCD. A stands for acromial, P for pectoral, C for clavicular, and D for deltoid. There are corresponding veins drain into the cephalic vein before piercing the fascia. So similar veins like APCD veins will also drain into the cephalic vein. So now going back to this picture, if you can see here, so this is the lateral pectoral nerve. Then here you saw the medial pectoral nerve. Okay, then along with that, this is the artery coming here. This is the thoracoacromial artery, which is giving four branches. This is the clavicular branch. Then you can see this is the acromial branch. Then we can see this is the deltoid branch, and here is the pectoral branch. These are the four APCD branches coming from the thoracoacromial artery. This is the artery and its four branches. Okay, then you can see the two nerves, the lateral pectoral nerve as well as medial pectoral nerve, and then you can see this is the cephalic vein. So these are the structures which are piercing the clavipectoral fascia. Okay. Then also there will be some lymphatics. So there is a nerve, there is a vein, there is an artery as well as lymphatics from the infraclavicular nodes and from the mammary gland to the apical group of axon node. These infraclavicular as well as mammary group of lymph nodes will finally drain into the apical group of lymph nodes. Okay, from the mammary gland as well as the clavicular, infraclavicular nodes will drain finally into the apical group, which is deep to this fascia. Okay, so it has to pierce. So these are some of the structures which will be piercing the clavipectoral fascia. Then coming to the last muscle, this is the fourth muscle which is present in the pectoral region, that is the serratus anterior. It's a broad sheet of muscle which form the medial wall of the axilla. If you see here, it is partly seen from the side and partly from behind. So this is the muscle which is taking origin from the ribs. We'll talk about that. And it forms the medial wall of the axilla. This is here will be the axilla. So this muscle will form the medial wall of the axilla. Okay, so the origin of this muscle is by 8 fleshy digitations arising from the outer surface and upper border of the upper 8 ribs. So it will take origin from the upper 8 ribs from the outer surface, okay, as 8 fleshy digitation as well as the upper border of the upper 8 ribs, 1 to 8 ribs. Okay, so this is the origin of the muscle and the insertion of this muscle. Before the insertion, the muscle, it not only take origin from the ribs, but also the fascia covering the intervening intercostal muscle, as we saw for the pectoralis minor muscle. So this muscle also take origin not only from the ribs, but by the fascia covering the external intercostal muscle, which are in between these ribs. Okay, so now coming to the insertion, it will be inserted on the costal surface along the medial border of the scapula. Okay, if you see this picture, so it is attached to the costal surface. Okay, there is a dorsal surface and the costal surface. Costal surface is attached to the costal ribs. This is the inner surface. So this muscle, serratus anterior muscle, will be inserted to the scapula on the medial border. This is the medial border, this is the lateral border, as you know. So it will be attached to the medial border on the scapula in the following way. Okay, so along the whole medial border. So how it is attached, we'll see in detail. So the first digitation is attached from the superior angle to the root of the spine of the scapula. So as you know, let me show this picture. Okay. So if you see here, so the first digitation coming from the first rib will go and attach to the superior angle to the root of the spine of the scapula. So this is the superior angle up to the spine. Spine will be seen from the dorsal surface. So the spine will come all the way up to here. So this first digitation will be attached from the superior angle up to the spine, root of the spine of the scapula. So this whole area is occupied by just one digitation coming from the first rib. The second and third digitation are attached along the medial border of the scapula. So the digitation coming from the second and third rib will be attached to the whole of the medial border. This is the whole medial border of the scapula. So what happens to the remaining five? The remaining five digitations coming from the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth rib are attached to the triangular area at the inferior angle. Into this inferior angle, all the remaining five digitation will be attached. So just one digit, the first digitation occupies such a big area. The two remaining digitation will occupy the whole medial area, and the remaining five digitation occupy just the small area, which is the inferior angle of the scapula. So the whole attachment starts from the superior angle up to the inferior angle of the scapula. Coming to the nerve supply by a nerve called as long thoracic nerve, which is also called as the nerve of Bell, and its root value C5, C6, C7, C7 coming from the brachial plexus. C5, C6, and C7 coming from the brachial plexus. This is called as the long thoracic nerve. Let me show you this picture where this here is the serratus anterior muscle, and here there is a nerve coming. This is called as the long thoracic nerve. Okay, which is coming from the brachial plexus, and it supplies this serratus anterior muscle. Now coming to the action of this muscle. So this muscle will help in the protraction of the scapula along with the pectoralis minor muscle. As we saw, pectoralis minor muscle will slightly help in the protraction, but the main muscle of protraction will be the serratus anterior. So contraction of the entire muscle helps in the protraction of the scapula, as in case of pushing and punching of movements. Okay, this is a very important muscle for the pushing and punching. Contraction of the lower five digitation along with the upper low and lower fibers of the trapezius rotate the scapula forwards and upwards, as in case of elevation of the arm above the head. So when you are elevating it, not only with the help, along with the help of the trapezius muscle, helps in the rotation of the scapula so that you can lift your arms above the head. How to check this muscle applied aspect? If you want to examine this patient, if a patient you suspect that this muscle is paralyzed because of the damage to the long thoracic nerve, so this leads to a condition called as winging of the scapula. Paralysis of this muscle leads to a condition called as winging of the scapula. So how do you examine this patient? Just ask the patient to lean on the wall and try to push or punch the wall. So if it is normal, the medial wall, because it is attached to the medial wall of the scapula, so if it is normal, so it will be look like this without any protrusion. But if it is paralyzed because of the damage of the nerve, so then it leads to a condition called as winging of the scapula, where you can see the whole medial border prominently. So in this patient, you can see the right side of the scapula medial border is very prominent. So it leads to winging of the scapula. So it means there is paralysis of the muscle on the right side. Okay, so this condition is called the winging of the scapula. So examining the patient with the paralysis of the serratus anterior is very easy. Just see for this sign called as the winging of the scapula. So this is all about the pectoralis, the pectoral region, and the four important muscles. The pectoralis major muscle, which form the main bulk here. then due to that will be the pectoralis minor as well as the subclavius, and then on the side you can see the serratus anterior muscle. So these are the four muscles of the pectoral region, and the fascia which is covering it, which is called as the clavipectoral fascia, its attachment as well as the structures piercing through it. So this is all about this topic called as the pectoral region. So if you have any doubts or questions, just write to me so that I will try to answer. So these are my references. These are the references. So if you have any doubts, as I said, you can write to me. So thank you very much.